Hey, it's Corey at Blue Plate, 3218 Mission Street. Come see us. Meatloaf, fried chicken, deviled eggs, Dollar Olympia beers. We're here every day of the week. We got a garden, and we got smiles on our faces. Come let us make you happy.
My name is Mort Burke. You're listening to Talkin Schmit.
A little bit of intro.
Yes, this is the moment.
It's cool, like tonight is the night.
Provoking the stoke.
I guess we're dancing now.
Talkin Schmit, dude.
Bipolar as fuck, that guy.
I wouldn't say it was fun.
What do you mean, bro? Christian Fletcher's younger brother.
Fuck the Dodgers.
Big Dog's in. What do you think, Talkin?
We on? Schmitty?
That was the worst thing I'd ever seen in my whole life.
Dude, we need a magazine.
I remember that.
What are Yuns doing?
Black skateboarding history is very important.
Holy shit.
Frisco icon.
What is happening?
Let's hear it for Greg Smith. Yay!
Gregory.
Wi-Fi check 1, Wi-Fi check 2.
Hello, everybody. We are back with another episode, and today I've got a comedian, and he is also a skateboarder, apparently. I ran into him through email after the Dan Plunkett episode, and he has a Phil Shao story for us, which I'm really excited about. So we're going to dive into some comedy, some skateboarding, who knows what else, but this is Mort Burke. Welcome to the show, Mort. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, Schmitty. Appreciate it, dude. Fan of the podcast. I listen to it a ton.
That's cool. So you listened to the Dan Plunkett one?
I did, yeah. And you guys were talking about stand-up, and I was like, I'm a stand-up. And then you talk about Phil Shao, I feel like comes up every like few episodes or something. So I was like, I'll email this dude. I'll send him my special just to like see if he's into it, you know?
Yeah, let's dive into that before anything, because Phil, I don't know if you are familiar, but Phil is the main reason I'm doing what I'm doing. Like, he was just an amazing skateboarder that grew up in Redwood City, is the city I was born. And he and I skated together. I wasn't that good, so I was smart enough to grab a video camera, and the rest is history.
Dude, amazing. So you grew up filming him. You like learned to film with him.
Yeah, my first video camera was my uncle let me borrow one for a trip that he and I took to Atlanta for the AM finals in 1992.
Wow.
So I got this camera, and I didn't even, dude, the first day I didn't even know you had to charge it. Like, I didn't know what I'm doing. And so we have all this footage of, like, you know, the battery running out in the middle or something. But like, after day one, I finally realized what to do. But yeah, after that, I just was like, dude, I love filming. This rules. And Phil was so good that, you know, he had a great talent, and just also he was humble enough to be like, yeah, you know, I don't care if you're going to blow it for, you know, the first few times or whatever.
Yeah. That's sick, man. And I feel like skateboarders are naturally good at filming because it's all about the fucking like composition. Like, we understand get the full ledge, get the stairs, get the handrail or whatever, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. So I only met him once, but it's like, it was this like mystical experience is how I would describe it. Like, so I'm 12 or 13 or something. I live in St. Louis. There's a Think demo in town. I go to the demo. I'm wearing the Think shirt. I remember what I was wearing. You know how you're not supposed to wear the shirt to the band concert, or whatever. Totally. So I didn't know not to do that. So I show up. I'm like a skinny little nerd. I sit down. I'm watching the demo. Phil is shredding the vert ramp, like, in a way, because this had to be like 92 or 93, and he was doing like kickflip indies and stuff, which I feel like that hadn't even started like popping off really, and just so sick. And I'm just sitting there like wide-eyed, like I can't believe, you know what I mean? And then the dude, he comes off the ramp. Oh, the other wild thing about this is that the last episode, Hansy Driscoll was talking about doing a demo in St. Louis, and this might have been that one. I don't know. I
bet you it was, because I think that was like a year after he was kind of like, you know, he got on Think for a little bit, but then after 92, after that finals we went to, he was kind of like, okay, you're on the team. Like, before it was a little more like, we'll give you some boards, like whatever. And then it was like, no, you're on.
Yeah.
So, and then they went on that tour with Hansi and I think Jesse Paez, and like, it was kind of like half Think and half adrenaline.
Dude, I think Paez was there maybe. It's weird though, because I don't remember him skating. He's talking about he's skating like an old school board because that's what they had. But I know the ramp he's talking about, which is like the shop in St. Louis was called Altered Skates. And the guy that owned it had this kind of weird like 70s style vert with like plexiglass vert ramp. It was real weird. So he's skating that thing, and I am just sitting there afraid to talk to anybody. My parents just dropped me off. And he walks down and sits next to me, which is like Michael Jordan coming out of the game and be like, "What's up, man? You want to chat?" You know? So he sits down next to me and I remember we had this big little mini ramp in my garage that we had just built. And he was like asking me about it. I don't know how it came up. I just remember that conversation. And then he gets up and just continues to shred. And I was like, this is already the greatest day of my young life. So then they do a product toss. And I'm like, I'm not going to get in the insane melee of that shit. I'm like a little guy, you know? And my board was shredded. And he walks over and hands me a brand new Paul Zwanich board. You know what I mean? And you know how huge that is to like a little kid who can't afford a skateboard. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty much my entire experience with him. But it's just like, it just shows me how much you can do for somebody if you're like being kind, like how far reaching that can be. You know what I mean? And he just had no reason to do that. And then like, I don't know, I've seen footage of him with he had little brothers and stuff. So I was thinking maybe that's why he saw, you know what I mean? Like he knew how to be like nice to like a, 12-year-old or whatever. Cause most skateboarders, they're fucking cool. They don't care about like a preteen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think he had a lot going for him because his parents were divorced. So he was kind of like a father figure to his brothers, his little brothers. And then he just was born so humble. Like he kind of almost made fun of himself when he was being so good, almost kind of like Costin does sometimes, where it's like he's kind of mocking it a little bit, like, oh, it's just and you're like, dude, I would die for that any day. Like, yeah, he's amazing. And the funny thing is, huge circle, small world shit is he introduces me to Paul Zwanich, who was working at Thrasher as Fausto, the owner's assistant. And then Paul Zwanich calls me one night and says, hey, Fausto wants to know if you can edit the next Thrasher video. And I'm like, and so Paul and I edited Thrasher video number 8 raw in the attic of my mom's house. And that was my start to like meeting Jake and meeting Fausto. And then eventually when Phil died, Jake came to me and said, you're going to work for Thrasher now. So like, it's pretty like crazy, like how all that stuff affected who I am today. So like, I'm sorry to my listeners if I repeat sometimes, but this is a huge part of who and why I'm here.
Yeah. Well, I'm such a nerd for that shit. I sort of can't get enough of like skateboard stories, and especially about him and that whole like era is so rad to me. Just being like a kid from the Midwest. I mean, it was like well, that's happening on Jupiter or whatever. So you know what I mean? So the fact that I get to like talk to people like you or whatever, it's like, yeah, it's a really fascinating experience. I like that about the internet, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the connections are crazy. I feel like a lockdown so check this out. What about this conspiracy theory? I'm not a huge conspiracy theory guy, but what happened to Skype? How come the minute we need video communicating, Skype's gone and there's this new thing called Zoom?
Like, I know, dude. Yes.
So
if anybody caused COVID, who benefited the most was this new thing called Zoom. Yeah. That's right. Nobody's looking to follow the money.
Like, did Zoom bring the COVID overseas?
Yeah, yeah, dude, big Zoom.
Crazy. Well, let me get a little background from you. Were you born and raised in St. Louis?
Yeah, I was born there, and I lived there till I was 23, and then I moved to Chicago.
Oh.
Yeah, and then I came to LA in like 2010.
Where did you start doing comedy?
At this theater at a Union Station in downtown St. Louis. It was like an improv theater. We did like improv and sketch and stuff when I was like 21. The interesting thing about this place that I always think about, so Union Station is like this really cool, beautiful former train station, like this structure that's almost like a cathedral or something. But have you ever seen the movie Escape from New York?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so they filmed Escaping from New York in St. Louis because St. Louis looks so much like the apocalypse at that point that they just like came in and were like, just light some trash can fires and we'll just film it. It'll be the apocalypse. So there's this scene in Escape from New York where there's like an apocalyptic wrestling thing between like the main bad guy and Kurt Russell or whatever.
Yep.
And that took place in this ballroom that I walked through every single time I went to do a show in this place. So it was like this really weird, I was like, fuck, Kurt Russell wrestled here. And now I'm going to do like bad short form comedy or something, like improv.
Crazy. What made you, who inspired you? Like, what was the inspiration to even get up there and start? I mean, I always think about stand-up comedy as like, it's one of the things in all of life that is like, it's just you. You got no one to blame but you. You're up on the stage in front of strangers. And when you're working on your material, it must be hell. Like, you're just like, is this funny, bros? Like, how do you get the guts to get up there and like dive in?
Yeah, dude, I think you have to be like a specific kind of damaged, I think, to like, like require the validation and also sort of, it's like, dude, it is like skateboarding. It's like, it's emotionally like skateboarding is physically. Skateboarding is like painful physically and emotionally, and comedy is just straight up emotionally kind of devastating. But it is that thing of you learn how to build a certain kind of like, I would say, I don't know, spiritual armor again, you know, or after a while you're like, well, I'll get him next time. It's the difference between like fucking, you know, getting a little hipper and then sometimes you like break your arm. That's when you're like bombing, you know what I mean? But I just grew up loving funny stuff. Like my dad and I watched the show Get a Life all the time, which is like a Chris Elliott show that was just really weird. Like he's like Adult Swim before Adult Swim or something. So there's just these like little weird comedy stuff that I like. And then my sister took me to an improv show she lived in Missoula, and most improv is bad, but this one happened to be really, really good. So then when I went back to St. Louis, I was like, I just did a little research and was like, oh, there's an improv club here I can start. So I took classes there, and they were like, I took classes and they're like, you're good at this. And that didn't happen a lot to me. Like one of the teachers was like, it's like a fish to water kind of. And I was like, fuck, finally I found something. Cause I love skateboarding.
I really like tacos.
I love the Bay Area. I love Neil Blender, man.
And not like I'm not saying I'm like the greatest comedian or whatever. I still have to work very hard, and it's hard, but I had to work really hard to be okay at skateboarding. You know what I mean?
Skateboarding's, I mean, I'm not saying comedy's easy, but skateboarding is very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting how you make the parallels, though. I was thinking like showing up to a ramp by yourself and dropping in when all the people on the decks are like the best dudes.
Yeah.
You know, like a similar vibe to that where you're like, fuck, I can't just go up and bail an axle stall.
Yeah, and it's similar too, because it's like you do it in a group, but it's solitary too. Do you know what I mean? So it has that similar thing of like you have your same. You know what I mean? Like that's what it's sort of. You can't. Nobody can do it for you. Do you know what I mean? Like you can't. I don't know. Like you're the one skating the ledge. Like your friends are watching, they're hanging out, they're psyched. You know what I mean? But it's like it is that interesting thing of like you have the support of the group to help you be an individual. You know, it's like that kind of.
What was your first experience with a skateboard? Did you get, were you skating, like you said, 12?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this too. So I have an uncle, my Uncle Jimmy. He still lives in New York. He's in his 60s, maybe, I think late 60s now. He still skates and surfs out there. So we were at my cousin's house. They lived in Kirkwood, St. Louis. My cousin had it was a super popular. It was a Nash board called Exterminator, and it had this just like a little crappy knockoff Kmart board or whatever. And my uncle did a handstand all the way down this pretty gnarly hill driveway that my cousin had, and I would have been less surprised if he would have flown away. Like, I remember being like, that is the most magical shit I've ever seen in my life. And I didn't really have any access to it, really. So I'd like beg my parents. They took me to Altered Skates, which was our skate shop in Del Mar. They bought me a used Tony Hawk board. After they got me like a Veriflex, I think, or something. But so that was around, like, I've always been really interested in it. I've always like... It's cool to have. I mean, because can I ask how old you are? Yeah, dude, it's so fascinating to have lived through lots of eras of skateboarding. Like, it's psycho that I was able to see my uncle, who was like influenced by very 70s skateboarding, like do that shit in front of me. You know what I mean? And now where it's at today, I love all the eras. They're really fascinating. And I'll say this other cool thing that happened. In like 94, I went to go visit my Uncle Jimmy, and he took me to the Brooklyn Banks. And this is again, nice. Like, yeah, dude. And being a kid from the Midwest, it's like walking onto the set of like the Seinfeld TV show or something. Like, it doesn't seem like it's real. Right. And you get there, and I remember the light was really soft and beautiful. Like, I have this really distinct memory of like what the banks looked like and how people talk about it. It's not like a jump ramp. It's like a weird wave almost. You know what I mean? And I'm there with my uncle. And this is like 94, so it's the height of like, oh wow, just like tech shit and like the uniform and all. There's a very specific way to skateboard.
Mid 90s, you heard of it?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, the sickest, most judgmental time in history. Yeah. And my uncle starts doing these screeching, like hands down power slides all the way across the bank, like full 70s style. And it was so sick that even the like cool New York kids were like clapping and getting psyched on him.
Holy shit, that rips. Damn, that's so cool, man. Who were your dudes? Like, if you were going to rip a page out of a mag, who would have been one of the dudes you were hyped on?
Oh man, at that time, I loved Phil. I started to get I love like, I don't know, man, Ronnie Krieger. That I had that 411 #1 with that Jeremy Ray section, which I was super into. So like when Secondhand Smoke came out, that's like his part in that is so underrated. I think he was like the height of his powers. I don't know, man. There's so many like, Costin and Duran. I love Mouse is probably my favorite video. That's my favorite, I think.
Yeah,
it's like one. Dude, it's from my era. You know what I mean? The soundtrack to this day is like one of the sickest soundtracks.
Well, yeah, they got a good cast, and I mean Spike helping. All those videos that they put out, Chocolate, Lakai, and Girl, are definitely top shelf.
Spike Jonze, the way he interjects stuff with like this like whimsy or something, there's just like something specific and hilarious and smart about those sketches. Yeah. You know what I mean? That like just really elevates skateboarding, which is already the coolest shit in the world, to like, oh, this is also like smart and artful or something, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I just talked to Aaron Meza, actually, who was working at Crail Tap for a while, and he's filmed with Mike Carroll since he was a kid and stuff. And I'm a good friend of his, but I'm also a big fan, and that's always weird where you're like, I'm not fanning out on you, but I kind of am.
Yeah, I'm still cool, dude, but tell me about this. Yeah. The finally FTC video for 3 hours or whatever.
So I got to ask you, I did a little research about you, and I got to hear about why your parents didn't name you Dylan.
Because they're cruel, vicious people. Yeah, there's my special. I got that joke about which is just true. My parents told me they almost named me Dylan, and instead they named me Mort, which is just a like vicious move.
Is Mort short for something?
Yeah, Morton Edmund Burke is my full name.
Morton. Okay, so what do people call you? Is Mort like your nickname, or like do they call you MB, or like what?
I'll take an MB. Let's let MB. I've been like, I'm long overdue for a cool skateboard nickname, so I'll go with MB at this point.
Like, do the girls call you Morty?
Yeah. Chicks really love it.
Let's talk about the path, because I know that not just, but last year you had a special come out, Spiritually Filthy, right?
Yeah, that's what it's called, yeah.
Okay, yeah. And so we'll get to that in a minute, but what led up, like what were some of your like, I don't know, trials and tribulations? What were some of like the shit that was like, man, I might quit? And then some of the stuff that was like, dude, I'm going to do a special.
Yeah. Man, that's good. One thing that comes to mind that was a nightmare was I was on tour with an improv troupe in Michigan, and we had to do a short form improv set at noon during lunchtime at a technical college while these guys are eating lunch, and they're like in jumpsuits between, they're like fucking like engine assembly courses or something, and I have to go on stage and be like, hey, give me a suggestion that's not dildo so we can do a scene that's something other than the word dildo. Like all that stuff, just touring. I was on, touring the country with like this improv troupe, which was really fun and cool. But, comedy, man, you kind of think about quitting all the time, all the time. Like, because I think about this too, like it's similar to skateboarding, that you're trying to do something that is like kind of impossible for human beings, which is to be super funny in front of people for like a long time. Like kickflips should not be possible. I still think that, and I can do them kind of, you know what I mean? I'm still like, you shouldn't be able to do that with your feet,
Yeah.
But so yeah, you always kind of have, that's why I feel like the hero worship thing is a little bit good in skateboarding, because you always need a level to kind of aspire to. And then also understand that like there's this phrase of like, you're seeing other people's highlights and you're seeing your behind the scenes. So you have to like remember while you're working on this stuff, like, oh yeah, it's a real serious process of how to evolve this material or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I think about quitting every 4 months to this day. And like, wow. And that's just kind of the deal, but there's kind of nothing else that I really enjoy enough. Like I worked at a law firm in Chicago and it was awful. Like I hated it so much, So yeah, there was a long period of like, I don't know. I came out to LA. I started auditioning for stuff a lot, and I started to get like a lot. Like there was a period where I was getting a bunch of TV work, which was really fun and cool. And I liked going to set. All that shit's amazing. Like I was just on the show Drunk History for a long time, which is pretty steady work and fun, because it was like one day it's Patton Oswalt, and then the next day like Will Ferrell is there, like Maya Rudolph shows up for like one day, you know what I mean? So you're seeing all your heroes come through, and at the time I'm like, the show's about history, and I was one of the white cast members, so I'm playing just like terrible racists, because it's about history. So I'm like usually a Nazi, you know what I mean, or like occasionally a president. So I would be like weird beard with like a goofy hat, you know what I mean, and also like Mandy Moore is across the table from me. Like it was just this surreal, really fun, like weird Hollywood experiences all the time. So that shit's really cool. But then this thing does happen where you get treated really well on set, which is like good and bad for the ego. Like you have your own trailer. That show also was like relatively low budget, but also you get catered to a little bit. And so when that stuff like stops happening, there's definitely like this ego readjustment of like, oh, I'm back to this place where I have to go audition for like terrible commercials. You know what I mean? And I think I really love working like in TV and film and stuff, but the auditioning process is, I hate it. Like it's like trying to do stand up, but I don't have a true interest in it. Whereas like comedy, I actually have an interest. So I feel like that stuff kind of distracted from my comedy actually for a long time. So then during the pandemic, my manager broke up with me, that's just what I call it. Like she was like, all right, well, I don't think this is working out. And I was like, okay, cool. And it allowed me to focus more on stand-up, which I wouldn't have done if I kind of hadn't gotten the boot, I think. So it was one of those situations that was like really rough and scary, but I think ultimately kind of put me closer to where I'm supposed to be, And it's one of those situations where you never feel, or at least in my experience, most of the time I don't feel stable. Like I don't feel like, my career's, that's the hard thing about having a career like this. You know what I mean? Which like your parents,
like a freelance photographer, right? Like every month is like different.
Totally, exactly. And that's why like your parents want you to be a doctor, because that's consistent. They're like, don't go into the arts. You know what I mean? So good and bad, like, hindsight is 2020. So I'm able to view all those experiences being like really cool, but while you're going through them, they're like, it's pretty nightmarish.
Which one pays the bills? Is the TV better or is the stand-up better?
TV is way better.
Okay.
TV is better. I'm still trying, I'm trying to figure out how to make money doing stand-up right now. Cause it's like, I don't tour currently. I live in LA. So it's kind of, I'm going to go do a show tonight for free. In Pasadena, just cause I'm doing stage
What's that
time.
place called? The Ice Factory or something?
Oh, there's the Ice House over there. Yeah.
Ice House.
Yeah, Ice House. I'm going this. I think I'm doing it at a bar. I think this place called The Mix. I think.
Oh, okay. There's probably tons, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
Who are some of the ones that are out there that like you're stoked on? Like, we just saw Maria Bamford. Since you mentioned Pasadena, I love her. But like, who are some, like, obviously the greats we all know, but who are some that like maybe are a little off radar?
Yeah, dude, I love Maria Bamford. This guy Brad Wenzel's really good. Chris Garcia's really good. My friend, this lady Catbird, she's great.
And now, another first impression from Catbird.
So my favorite memory with Mort was when we went to a taqueria together and we bonded over comedy, life, being a human. He's just a lovely person, and there was like such an honesty and warmth that we had together. And I knew that was when the friendship started.
There's so much good stuff. The last John Early special on HBO is really good, I thought.
Okay. We love comedy. I mean, like we were talking about in the last episode, it's like me and my wife, we don't go out. I stopped drinking like 8 years ago, so we don't go to the bars really. Yeah. And comedy's kind of one of our main, like, if there's somebody good coming through, we're pretty much going, like I got her Tina and Amy tickets for Christmas, so we're going to check that out. And we, Chappelle comes through or Chris Rock, we're going for sure. Those are two of my favorite. But we took the train up to Reno and saw, I think it was Jim Gaffigan or.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, we love, like, I love it.
Nice, man. That's great. Yeah, it's the coolest. Like, do you watch that? Do you know, he's pretty big, that guy, Gerard Carmichael. Did you watch his last special?
No.
It's called Nathaniel. It's really fascinating. I watched it once and I was like, I don't know if I like that. And then I watched it again. I was like, oh, this is a piece of art. He comes out as gay in the special.
Oh, we did see that. We did.
Oh, did you see that? Yeah. Which is like, the whole thing is just filmed like a it feels like a jazz record or something. I really like, you know what I mean? Like Maria Bamford, like she'll screw with the medium a lot. She did a lot of she did a whole special just for her parents.
Yeah. And we just saw her do I think it was supposed to be a book reading, like when she released her book, but it started with just stand up. She came out, which I loved because, I love anything, but like, we got both. We got the stand-up and the Q&A about her book. And I just trip out on, because like she talks about suicide and like some pretty gnarly things. And these are things that she's experienced. So it's weird. It's like this thing that like most people can't joke about this stuff. She can, but it's also kind of informative. So I don't know. Pete Holmes is cool because he just has this interesting way of making you think. I like comedy that's like intelligent, like where you're like, holy shit, how come I never thought of that?
Yeah. How did this fucking clown on stage make me like have a philosophical reasserting? Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. And dude, Maria Bamford, even though she's one of the greats, I still think she's underrated because because of what you're talking about. Like and especially where skateboarding is, there's been this whole people sort of talking about mental health shit and how important that is, right? It's like she's been doing that for 20 years, like, and she's the kind of comic too. She's like, you know how when you get into Bob Dylan, you have to like get past his voice. You know what I mean? Like with Maria Bamford, she's like a little bit sharp and a little bit much at first. But once you get into that, like her rhythm and her kind of persona, it's like there's so much depth there, like and it's all super original shit, like it's just so good.
Yeah. When you're in the process of like coming up with a stand-up, are you going out and trying jokes and paying a lot of attention to the audience and going like, note to self, that one worked, note to self, that one didn't, that kind of vibe?
Yeah, I do that, and I also try to really consider like this is funny, dude. I've been doing a lot of like open mics, so I've been going to do comedy like for other comedians a lot lately.
Whoa.
And it's interesting because it's like sometimes it's a little bit like training with weights because they don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? Like, And what's interesting about them is we can smell a joke from a mile away. So you're much more likely to get a laugh from like a riff about whatever something weird that's happening in the room than like, if you're going to get a laugh off a joke, it has to be super well constructed. So I'm also like, if I have something that I like and it's not working, I try it a few times and see if I can change the tag on it or see if like, I believe in I think Chris Rock said this thing about like, if they're not laughing, they don't understand the premise. So a lot of times you've kind of like overthought stuff and you need to simplify the premise or find out if the premise is, can be clarified in some way. And then if you do all that and it still isn't funny, you're like, all right, well, that's not a joke then. Like that doesn't work, you know?
Okay. How did you come up with the name Spiritually Filthy?
Yeah, I was like, my comedy, especially then, had a ton of swears in it. Like it was there's a bunch of like dirty shit in there. But I got sober when I was 28, which is 15 years ago. And when I started doing that, I kind of realized like, oh, I actually need a spiritual life, which is a weird, strange thing to talk about. But like, I meditate and stuff like that. So I just sort of thought that was an interesting name to like, to me, there's a tension between like the spiritual and the filthy. Like, can these things exist together? And also kind of a warning too, like, just so you know, like this is going to be filthy and there might be some stuff in there that is vaguely spiritual, which pisses some people off. So I wanted to like warn you ahead of time as a viewer, maybe.
Okay. I wonder like if you even have a thought on this, but like with politics, there's far left and far right and not a lot in between. Is that safe to say with comedy? Like, are you kind of like going in and you're going to have like one side of the fence that's like, if they're into you, they're like, these are the type of people, or is it more just jumbled?
It's interesting. I think I'm still trying to answer that for myself. Like, I think as you go through and you're still trying to figure out kind of continually what your voice is, you know what I mean? Like, how can I say what I believe in and what I think is true and also allow it to be funny? It's not that I'm worried about alienating people, but I am worried about like being honest in a way. And, I come from it's same thing. Like my shit comes from the 90s. So I was really into like Janine Garofalo, you're like David Cross's, like stuff like that is kind of my main sort of influence, And then also I feel like there's like Pete Holmes, like he's a spiritual dude, so he'll talk about that stuff. And so I think there's, in my mind, like room to combine those things. And then there also is an entirely other section of comedy, which is like your sort of Joe Rogan's like podcast famous, like your Tom Segura's, like those guys are really huge, And so those guys I think are really speaking to a really broad audience, like a big kind of dominant culture of like, America's, the main demographic is like white males, like 20 to 32 or whatever, you know what I mean? And I feel like, those are the people who that guy speaks to. So I think those people speak to. So I think it depends on who you want to speak to with your shit. But I think you're right that there's the comedy version of far left, far right, and a lot of stuff in between.
Well, I mean, I obviously Ricky Gervais is on a way huge scale, but we've gone to see him and people have like, he's talking about there's no God and people are freaking out because it's San Francisco. And he's like, who did you pay to see? Like, like, it's like, what did you think I was going to do?
Yeah. This is my whole shit.
So
don't expect Charlie Chaplin not to have big pants on. Like that's interesting. So I feel like SF would be more open to the atheist stuff. I'm surprised that.
Yeah, it is. But just like everything, there's extremists, right? Like it's like like when Kathy Griffin came through, people are just out in front with fucking protest signs and all this shit. And it's like, she had Trump on the cover headless and people were upset. It's like San Francisco, you'd think wouldn't be a Trump city, but there are people that come, you always get both sides of the equation. And it's interesting to see because like I grew up with Howard Stern being like a huge thing for me. And now I wonder like if that approach would work, like if like shocking people like a Ricky Gervais, obviously he's been doing it for years, but if you came up right now and you're like, I don't give a fuck about the left side, I'm going all right side, are you canceling half of your audience and kind of shooting yourself in the foot? Like, do you have to be a little more like, you know what I'm saying? Like in the middle, in the beginning, to be like, yeah, dude, I do it all, like da da da. And then once you get a little something, you could be like, actually, that other shit was like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think people get a lot of like traction out of sort of being like quote unquote anti-woke or whatever. I think that's like a really, you know, the people that are like, I don't know, this gets so weird and controversial to talk about. You know what I mean? But like people that are like, yeah, I'm going to use the word retarded. You know what I mean? And the people are like, hey, that's actually kind of unkind. You know what I mean?
Mark Normand.
Yeah. And those dudes, they're great comedian. You know what I mean? Like some of those people are impeccable joke writers. You know what I mean? And like, and I also very much understand this thing of like, especially too from coming from skateboarding, I understand like the rebellious thing of like, don't fucking tell me what to say. Do not tell me. I came up here because I want to be able to say whatever it is that I want. You know what I mean?
And I'm a comedian.
Yeah, for sure. And right, exactly. And like, these are powerful words and comedians utilize language. And so they understand the power of certain specific words. Right. But I also think personally that it's like, yeah, you could also do to maybe try to listen to what those people are saying too, that like, maybe there's a way to say this that isn't hurting marginalized people. Do you know what I mean? Like my opinion is that there's a reason those words, they're so powerful, because it's like, it actually feels good to fucking make fun of people. And it feels really good to make fun of people that are actually weak and can't defend themselves. It's actually kind of funny to do that. You know what I mean? Like, let's just
I do.
Right? You know what I'm saying? But
I'm
also
older
like,
than you are, so I definitely do.
You know what I mean? But then also when those people are like, hey, that hurts that you keep calling me retarded.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? I literally watched this thing the other day that was like, it was this video on YouTube about a bunch of people with varying levels of disability, and they were asking them, like, it was this weird kind of gimmicky thing. It's a bunch of people standing in a line, and they ask them a question, and the people move like all the way over to the right if they agree, all the way over to the left if they don't disagree. And these are people like with Down syndrome. And the question was like, how do you feel about people using the R word? And none of them liked it. You know? Like, how would you do your retard joke in that room with those people?
Yeah, that's
you know what I mean?
Some of these guys, like, that's what they do. They come out and they just like, I saw Hannibal Buress and I couldn't believe it. So it was the Giants versus the Cubs in the playoffs, and we lost. So we were out of the playoffs. That night, Hannibal played in San Francisco, he's from Chicago, and he just put up on the big screen the score the whole time and highlights of the game before he even came out. Like, fuck you, San Francisco. I was like, this guy, I was like, kind of respect. That's so gnarly.
That guy's amazing. Yeah, man. So it's a complex world. You know what I mean? These are like delicate issues, and it is funny that, like, I don't know, comedians, they're mostly meant to just like work in nightclubs and be assholes. You know what I mean? So then all of a sudden they're kind of at the forefront of like this giant question about a shifting social reality. You know, it's like, I don't fucking know, dude. I was just in clubs for 15 years trying to get yucks, you know?
Yeah. Do you have to take like beta blockers or like just like be callous? Like, I don't have any feelings, like that vibe. Like when you go out there and like, if people are like, do you kind of feel like you're less sensitive after you've done this enough? Like you kind of desensitize?
That's interesting. I don't necessarily think that I have, and I may just be like an especially sensitive person.
When's the last time you cried?
I mean, I'm not a pussy, dude. No, I don't cry enough. I think I rarely cry, and I think it's weird. I think I'd be like, whenever, I don't know, if a little tear comes out, I'm like, dude, thank God.
I know what you mean. There's been a lot of hardship. Like there's been a lot of the COVID, all that stuff. And like, I've lost friends and all that stuff. It just like, after a while, you're just like, yep, here we go again.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I think it's really fascinating, this idea of like, that the universe is like, okay, take a break. Everybody take a break for 2 years and see what happens. You know what I mean? And it's hard. Like, what do they say? That all of the problems in the world come from man's inability to sit in a room alone with himself. And like, that's what COVID was doing to us. Like, how do you deal with just yourself? Like, what does that really feel like? Because I think like societally, we do a ton of work to not feel our feelings, whether it's, and me too, like I look at my phone 11 hours a day. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
you stay busy to not face the reality a lot of times.
Totally. And it's fully incentivized to stay busy, right? It's like, just keep going, keep going, keep going. And I love, I very much understand that like human beings are designed to create and do things, but also like there's no cultural incentive to like try and experience some kind of personal peace, and like you see the effect. People are fucking so angry, That's what's interesting about comedy to me is like in the 50s you had like Lenny Bruce, you know what I mean? And then Carlin, right? And Richard Pryor and whoever, like Andrew Dice Clay or whatever, all these people. And I feel like so much of that, especially with like your Lenny Bruce, is like they needed to show people how to be angry because it was the 50s and like nobody knew how to express anger and there was a lot of stuff to be angry about, But now I feel like it's like everybody knows how to be fucking pissed. That's all we know how to be is angry.
Yeah, if they're not, it's like the hurry up and wait mentality. Like people are such in a hurry to do nothing. It's crazy. Like the dude behind you just like freaking out in his car and you're like, dude, what am I going to do? There's it's insane. I just laugh. I start making fun of those people in the mirror. I'm like, yeah, hey.
Thumbs up, brother. You need to get home to watch Suits for 4 hours on Netflix. Who gives a shit? Relax.
Talk about the idea. Like, I thought it was interesting. You had the skateboarding intro. Is that like, where is that? Burbank or something?
Yeah, Culver City.
Culver City. Okay.
Culver City, so
what was like, did you come, obviously you probably came up with that since you're skating, right?
Yeah, I kind of co-directed it. I was like, I wrote it and co-directed it. Yeah, that was my desire. I wanted to be in a sketch from Mouse. That was like, the influence there is just straight up like Spike Jonze and a little bit of Bag of Suck.
You just influenced somebody.
Like the way how in Bag of Suck, they had the like out of camera practical effects. You know what I mean? Like Louis Barletta skates by and he's got those 3D letters of his name. Yeah. That's why I did that, like 3D letters. Like those are real. People think the letters that spell out my name are like Photoshop, but those are, I paid a dude $400. This is the most
they put them out in the street there.
Yeah, this most like narcissistic thing. Like, hey man, can you make my name giant right now? So that was the whole thing of like, even there's like most of it is based on, or there's shots of it that are very much based on the Wood sketch from Mouse, like just the camera angles of like Rick Howard skating by and stuff.
Yeah,
so that's where all that like came from. And then the music is like my best friend from high school's band.
It's on YouTube, right?
Yeah, and we released it with 800 Pound Gorilla. Which is a good like comedy media company. I think I believe
that's like Kevin Hart's company, right?
Yeah, Kevin Hart started it. Yeah, and then I had a friend who put out a special with All Things Comedy, which is Bill Burr's, but he knew the 800 Pound Gorilla dude, so that's how I got like in connection with them. And we self-financed the special, so I already had it. So sometimes it works like a music label or something where like you invest. And then they take, after you sell the record, then they take the money back. But this was a situation where I just went in and was like, I have this piece, which that's cool. That's like a skateboarding DIY thing too, of like, I know what this, and dude, the idea came to me in the pandemic. Like I went crazy like everybody else, but I also meditated my ass off because I know how crazy I am. And if I don't do that, I'm like nuts. And I was just meditating one point and I was like, dude, I've been doing stand-up for a long time. I should just put out a special. And I knew I had all this material. Some of it was like pretty old and some of it was like 2 weeks brand new. So I was like, this is kind of cool. Actually, this like covers a period of my life of like getting sober and all this stuff. My buddy JF, who directed it, he's a really good touring stand-up. He was on Bill Burr's The Ringers, which is the show. And he opens up for Joel McHale. Anyway, so, and I live with this dude. We used to drink together. Now we're both sober. We like partied like psychos in Chicago. And so he was like, yeah, I'll totally direct that. He's kind of a filmmaker. So yeah, it was this fun thing of like, I get to do exactly what I want to do. So we filmed it at this theater called the Yard Theater in Los Angeles, which is John Ennis, who was on Mr. Show, which is like maybe the best sketch of all time. Up there, right? Your Monty Pythons, whatever.
Yeah.
And so I'm friends a little bit with his family. Like his daughters are both actresses and they're great. And so we filmed it there and we did 2 shows in one night. And but I think the long set was like, I only did like 45 minutes, but then we looked at it and we were like, James is like, you should take this. This is an unfinished joke. This is an unfinished joke. This one's unfinished. Take these out. And it just felt like, oh yeah, that's exactly like what this wanted to be. It was like pulling the clay off the sculpture and it was like, oh, this is it right here, you know?
Oh, that's a good point. You can overshoot it and then just kind of tighten it up with the best of the best.
That's what I was thinking. Like, I would much rather have a short, good special than a long, mediocre one, which is what I feel like I got there, you know?
Leave them wanting more and not have them leave before it's over.
Yeah, dude, exactly. Yeah, you don't want to be yawning and walking out.
Yeah. Huh. Have you done any like opening for bigger names, or do you mostly do just like your stuff?
I haven't done open for any other stand-ups. I did go on tour with David Cross in like 2008. We did like 28 cities.
Nice.
This was crazy too, because I had just gotten sober. I was like 6 months sober at the time, and he was my idol, and he called me on the phone and was like, hey, do you want to go do this thing? So I was like, and I met him through, it's kind of a long story, but I was doing shows with this lady named Susan Messing who worked at Second City, and she was friends with Bob Odenkirk. So he came to town with Cross to do a sketch show, and they were like, who should we look at? And she gave them my name. So I'm working at Urban Outfitters. I'm getting off at like 10 p.m. I'm so pissed. I hate fucking, like, there's nothing worse than customer service. I'm exhausted and pissed. And I get a voicemail. There's like, hey, this is a message for Bob Odenkirk. And I was like, again, that's, I don't know. It's like Costin calling you up, or, you know what I mean? Or whatever. So I did that sketch show with them, and then I got sober. I think I just started getting sober, and then Cross called me. He was like, you want to go on tour? So then I did that one with him, and that was wild because we played, our first show was at, I always forget the name, the like major San Francisco venue that Aretha Franklin.
Cobb's?
No, Rolling Stones played there, not the Wiltern.
Oh, the Fillmore?
Yeah, the Fillmore, dude.
Whoa.
So I'm
with all the posters of the whole history of the club everywhere. That place is the shit.
Dude, psychotic. And I forget what it holds. It's like 4,000 people or something.
Big, yeah.
So I'm like, and the crazy thing about that was that, like, so he's my idol. I'm already terrified, and I have to go. I wasn't doing stand-up. I was like almost doing sketches in his show. Like I played a deaf interpreter at the top, and then it turned out that I was like telling my own jokes. So I had to, so I'm at the Fillmore, and I had to like walk through the crowd of like 4,000 people and then turn around while my idol is like right above me and like pretend to be deaf.
Oh my God. That's amazing though. David Cross is solid.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Incredible.
Holy
so that's,
shit.
I keep having this, like with the Phil Shao stuff, I don't know what this interesting thing happens where like people I end up interacting with like amazing people sometimes.
Well, it's a small world kind of. And also, you know, we were just talking about this on a last episode where we were talking about there's not that many things like skateboarding. And maybe comedy is one where you can go out, like you're never going to go play basketball with Michael Jordan, but you might be able to skate with Costin. And that's what we were saying is so unique about, you know, skateboarding. But comedy, maybe it's the same way where it's like, I might be able to, you know, go on tour with David Cross, or Odenkirk might call me up to say I'm in town and I want you to open for me or whatever. Like these are possibilities that, like, you know, again, Michael Jordan is never going to call you and say, hey, I'm in town. I want to play basketball. Like that's not happening.
Yeah. Yeah. It's totally, because skateboarders, they need the streets, and comedians, they need crowds to perform for. So they're just continually trying to like find the people. Same with skateboarders, especially if you're in LA. Like, yeah, you might be at Frogtown and then like Rowan Zerwilla shows up or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's cool. What do you think LA versus New York as far as the comedy scene? We were in New York and seemed like I was just jealous. I was like, why doesn't San Francisco have this? Like there's a block where there's just all these clubs and you could go in and somebody cool might walk in at any time. Is LA at all like that?
LA's cool because there are some of the best comedians in the world out here. So like you could go, you know, there's a pier where you could see like Eugene Merman on a Tuesday for $6. You know what I mean? Like, but I do think New York is probably the best place to do stand up. It's just more of like a theater town, so people are more willing to go out and be psyched.
Yeah.
And the scene there, as far as I haven't done much out there, but as far as I understand it, is like people get really good really fast because you can do like 15 sets a night there or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you want to work, you can.
Yep, totally. And I think we're getting better about that in LA. There's kind of this thing now where people are doing like open mics kind of all throughout the day. So I've been doing that a lot, and that's kind of interesting because it's like you can get your shit done at like by 4:00. You can have done 3 sets if you want. It's not the most like, it's not the same thing performing like to an electric crowd or whatever, but you can get up there and work on your shit. But yeah, I think New York's probably the coolest, it just sort of is. Whereas like LA, it's such an industry town that even when you do a show, sometimes it feels like, it's mostly like, it's either kind of like tourists or like industry people. Not there's anything wrong with either of those things, but yeah, New York, I feel like those people they're out to see a show. And they
Yeah, no. And it's just, I mean, how much age is out there. It's like everything is so classic. All the spots are like really cool. I mean, the cover of Physical Graffiti is like a couple blocks away. Like you got all this insane like history there. Like it just breathes like you're lucky to be here kind of.
Yeah, totally. It really does have its own very like singular energy to it. You're like, it does feel very alive,
What do we think about Kill Tony? Because a couple guys at my work keep telling me like this is the best shit ever, and I've tried to dive in a couple of times and I can't pull it. I don't know if I'm too old or if like I'm doing the wrong ones. What do you think about it?
Yeah, well, I knew it. So I knew a dude who got kind of big on Kill Tony and has since passed away. Our friend Michael Lair, who I did a couple things with in Chicago. So he kind of broke out on Kill Tony, which is great. He had this like degenerative disorder, so he would perform in his wheelchair, and he was hilarious.
Oh wow!
And so he was one of the few people I've seen, I could be wrong, who like broke through on that show, on that recording or whatever. So I think that's sick. Like I kind of wish that would happen more. Yeah, I'm glad that I didn't, at like a few years in, go to a very highly watched place and try to do stand up. You know what I mean?
And
to me,
basically the intention is to get shit on. Like, is it like they just want to fucking talk shit on you?
I don't know. I honestly haven't even watched it that much.
Okay, because I saw one where Ric Flair was on it, and he got up and walked out because they were being too harsh on the guy.
Too harsh for Flair?
Yeah, I was like, this is crazy.
Isn't his whole thing like, I'll fuck your wife on a jet? Like,
styling and profiling. I'm out of here.
He's like, not for me. Too cruel.
Yeah.
If it's here and you want it, woo, come and get it, because we're in town for a party, Daddy.
I don't know. It wasn't for me, but
it's like people are so interesting. They're so interested in comedy too. Like when we were coming up, there was like 5 comedians and you didn't know anything about them, right? And then now you can go learn. You can watch thousands of podcasts and learn all about the technique and the road life, you know what I mean? And people are always wanting to watch that stuff. So I feel like that's another version of it, right? They're trying to get down to like, if you're saying like, you should open with this, like people are really interested in the behind the scenes and like the technique behind all of it. Which to me is, I'm for sure reaching too far with these metaphors, but maybe it's like the rough cut as opposed to the part, you know what I mean? Like you're seeing the slams and shit.
Okay. We love Kill Tony. What's one of your favorite moments in the TV world? You got the Mindy Project, Drunk History, Couples Therapy, a bunch of stuff I saw on your IMDb page. What was like some of your funnest, like, God, I wish I could keep doing that?
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I really did love being on Drunk History a lot for the reasons that I said. Like I did one scene on Lady Dynamite. I got to be on Maria Bamford's show, and that was like, I mean, she is such like a hero to me that it was like meeting her was so amazing. I'm such a night owl. Like I'm weirdly a like moon person. I love the night. And one thing that's weird about this stuff is you have to get up at like 5 a.m. and go to set. So I'm like groggy and exhausted, and I sit down, and then Maria Bamford's like right next to me, and she's like, "Oh, hello, I didn't see you there." Like she just immediately gets into like Maria Bamford mode, but was so kind and cool and hilarious. You know what I mean? It's like that kind of stuff is, So sick. Like I don't know.
Imagine
man.
going around the country in a van with her, like just all the different characters she would pull out and be like, "Hey, stop!" Like, and her mom is always with her. You know, it's like, oh, man, it's so good.
Dude. And that impression is so like, even you've never, you haven't met her mom, but that's like everyone knows that woman, and it feels like it's like coming. That voice is like coming from somewhere else. It's like she's channeling it.
I am grateful that your father is here with us tonight and he is not spending his entire life with his buddy Lyle.
Bill Hader does Al Pacino. You know what I mean? You're like, dude, it sounds like he's like he's like wearing Al Pacino's skin or something. It's like a crazy thing.
When you did Drunk History, were you sober yet, or did that encourage you to be sober?
I was sober. Yeah, that which is a funny thing. I was sober, so it's like. People are always like, how did you not drink? But the thing is that it's just a super professional television production. Like I was on the reenactment side of it. So they already recorded like the drunk interviews, and then we would show up and just like mouth the drunk interviews. But it was, I had 2 years sober when I moved to LA, and I probably got that gig like 3 years in or something. So I had like some time under my belt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any, what do they call them? Triggers. Do you have any triggers, or are you good? I mean, you have 12 years, huh?
Yeah, 15.
Oh, 15.
15 years now. Yeah. Yeah, dude, it's interesting, man. It's still, I go years with not wanting to drink at all. And I once you get into the sober life and you learn shit like the corny shit helps. Like if I practice gratitude, I just say out loud, like, I'm grateful for hot water. It feels like so lame at first, and then after a while, like feel really good in the shower now. You know what I mean? So if I'm doing stuff that I need to do that help me to be sober and happy, then triggers don't matter. But then I'll, like anybody else, I go through depressions. I don't know, holidays are weird. You got to be careful around the holidays. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. You also have to be careful around Game of Thrones. I never wanted a glass of wine more than watching Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it's the number one thing that takes people out.
The chalice, it's all cool, and Peter Dinklage is getting hammered. You're like, that's what I want.
I mean, Peter Dinky, baby.
Yeah,
dude. No, it's true. And that was when I first got sober. I was like, dude, the beer commercials are the most fetishistic, like, pornographic shit you've ever seen. I'm just sweating, like watching the condensation on the beer mug. You know what I mean? Like they know how to make that shit look good and cool as shit. And like, dude, I don't know. Everybody wants to be cool. I know I do. Like, I don't think you start skateboarding because you don't want to be cool. Like we do it because we love it, but it's also like, it's so sick. Just aesthetically, it's the sickest. Skateboarding is the coolest,
it's a great way to show your individuality. Like everyone can do a Smith grind, but not everyone can do it like Mike Carroll. Not everyone could do it like Tommy Guerrero. Like when you do your trick, you see who you are.
Yeah, and it's also like it is similar to stand up in that the person is part of the art form. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. It's not like you wrote a book and then hand it to someone. You're like, here. So it's in that, I don't know. It's interesting. It's like, it's vulnerable in that way, which you can understand why skateboarders go crazy, why they fucking smash boards and why they do drugs. You know what I mean? Me too. I did all that shit,
Yeah. The obvious thing is you're in pain, so you take opiates and then you're addicted, and then it's like a gnarly, shitty place to be. And I've seen that happen too many times, but it just makes sense. I always, I say this every week, so people that listen to me regularly are like, stop comparing skateboarding to wrestling. We get it.
There's a 10,000 people signed a petition
dudes that
online.
Don't make a lot of money. Like you're not going to be rich, and you're putting yourself in pain every time you do your sport. One last TV question: The Jury Duty. Did you watch it?
Yeah.
How amazing was that? I mean, that's full on improv. So that's kind of like speaking to you. Like me and my wife are latecomers. We're on the caboose on this. We just found out about it. We watched one episode, and the next day we watched the rest of the season. Like we were like, no way, this is amazing. Like it was really cool. And that actor guy that's in X-Men or whatever, he was phenomenal.
Yeah. Hilarious. There's nothing better than playing like an LA asshole. And he like did it so perfect. Yeah, I thought it was great. So my friend Cassandra Blair's in that. She plays like, I don't remember her character's name. She's like light-skinned black lady who's like, does a lot of side eye at the dude. She's great. She and I took an acting class together. We've like worked on auditions. I'm so psyched she got that because she's what so
a
great.
Cool thing to be a part of.
Dude, completely. And you can work your whole life and never get a big shot like that. So the fact that she's a great person, you know what I mean? That's so sick when that happens. Yeah, I thought it was great. And two, like, one of the main, I'm forgetting the dude's name, but one of the main creators, he's a stand-up. The dude who's like, he talks about his girlfriend a lot on the show, who's getting kind of like cucked or whatever, to use the popular.
Yeah.
That dude. I think
then he ends up not having it, or his girlfriend broke up with him or something.
Yeah. He's a really funny stand-up, that guy. And it's this interesting thing that they were like, what a risk to be like, all right, we're going to put all this money and all this time into this thing with with a person who we have no idea how they're going to react. You know what I mean? So the fact that it like came out so watchable is pretty sick.
I know. That was a good show. If anyone hasn't seen that, I highly, highly recommend it.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you have other passions, but what I'm hearing is skateboarding and comedy. If you go out to get a cup of coffee, would you rather meet up with your comedian hero or your skateboard hero?
Probably my skateboard hero, because I think I would feel like I'm not pretending like I'm good at skateboarding. You know what I mean? Like there's no pressure there, you know? But I feel like if I went and met my comedic hero, I'd be like, feel pressure to get some good cracks in there or something. But so I could just like fan the fuck out. And if they were open to it, that'd be great.
Who would it be?
Man, who do I want to talk to? Dude, I went to the Static premiere. My buddy got me in there, and Rick Howard was there. That was pretty sick, just to shake his hand and meet him. I feel like it'd be amazing to talk to Rick Howard, you know?
Yeah, he's great.
For a while, my buddy Colin Clark got me into that, so that was really fun. Yeah, I think he'd be really sick.
Okay. This one we've asked a bunch throughout the episodes. It's probably kind of tough, but maybe just the first ones that come to mind is usually what I recommend. But the Mount Rushmore of comedians.
Okay. Yeah, totally. Let's see. Richard Pryor. I'm going to say Odenkirk.
Ooh.
Here's why. Because the dude he's been at so many different important turning points in comedy. Like, he wrote the Van Down by the River sketch. He lived with Farley in Chicago. And if you know that and you watch them, they both they explode into anger the same way, you know, and then he did Mr. Show, and then he fucking discovered Tim and Eric effectively. And they changed comedy in their own way. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I
love Tim and Eric.
Yeah, dude. So good.
Odenkirk's like one of me and my wife's favorite. Like, if he's coming through for Sketchfest, I think, and we're going to go check him out.
Oh, nice. Yeah, completely. I would say, and this is just for me. This is just personally.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Not like, all right. Yeah. So then I'm going to do Maria Bamford on there too.
Okay.
She's a strong one. I'm going to say this, I'm going to say this dude, Chris Garcia, man. He has this album called, this is crazy to put him on there because he's not that much older than me, but I want to go down a line and be like, he's got this album called Laughing and Crying at the Same Time that I don't know how many people have heard, but that's the record that I feel like I go to, I've listened to the most probably over the last few years, because it's really it's so funny, and also really, there's just stories in there about him losing his virginity, and stories about him with his dad, where when you get done with it, you feel better and you feel closer to him. This dude Ron Funches, who I like a whole lot, and we're kind of buddies. I did his podcast. We did the show called Enlisted together. He said this thing where he's like, I don't even want to hear your opinions about the world. I want to hear about you. And I think I don't always do that, but I think that's a really smart way to do it, because if you speak about your own experience, like we're talking about Maria Bamford, it just, you develop this whole universe that's specific to you. Yeah, so that's kind of my favorite shit. By the way, that Mount Rushmore list will change tomorrow. So
absolutely, yeah. I mean, unless you think real hard and write everyone down and cross out and like spend a month on it, you're not going to have like the, yeah, I know. It's like people always ask me like your favorite things you've filmed and stuff. And it's like, well, what comes to mind right now is this, but tomorrow I'm going to remember that I forgot all this stuff, you know, like, so yeah. I appreciate the ones that you can just kind of like rattle off and not be stressed and that like, you didn't put Lenny Bruce in there. Come on. You know, it's like, you know,
you don't know art or whatever. Yeah. It's like asking me to pick one of my kids. It's Dave. Dave is the best kid. You've seen that kid?
How you have kids? How many kids do you have?
No. I'm just kidding. Kidding. I don't.
Rad. Well, if I was going to be down in the LA area and I got a few days, what are like 2 or 3 places that is a pretty sure shot for me to go see some good comedy without knowing who's on the bill?
Yeah, good question. I mean, that's the cool thing about LA is that you know, it's kind of the big 3 out here are the Laugh Factory, the Improv, and the Comedy Store, you know? So you could easily check out any of those. There's a place called The Crow on the west side, which is like a pretty new club that it's like a kind of an independently owned homespun little space. That'd be a good one to check out too if you're looking for like new sort of up and comers, I would say.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I appreciate you taking the time. Is there anything else you want to plug or say or anything?
No, but dude, you can cut this out or whatever. I'm so looking forward to your Shao documentary.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. That was actually what the content meeting was about. It's definitely going to be like, man, is this good enough? I don't want to put it out unless it's good enough.
Yeah, man.
So yeah, he's the best.
Wow. But even like just seeing, you know, hearing people talk about the tail slide to fakie at the China Banks. I love the China Banks doc, by the way. So, dude, I think I've watched it 3 times. I'm such a nerd, dude.
Yeah.
I'll probably fucking watch it again.
I mean, we all are, right? It's like, that's what I mean. Like your friends are your inspo and stuff. Like you see these dudes that you kind of know and they make really cool shit. And you're like, dude, I love it. Like really love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah, it makes your life brighter. I mean, that was my experience with him. This is kind of weird, but I was in therapy and I was talking to my therapist and she was like taking me through these kind of more traumatic events a little bit. And she was like, think of like a person who could kind of be there for you like a guardian angel or something. And what popped into my head was Phil Shao. Like that's the level of impact that guy had on me. And I met him for 3 hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but those are the moments. I mean, when you're growing up, especially, like you hold on to things, right? Like you got your teddy bear, like from 4 years old or whatever. Growing up, that inspiration, like we get jaded a lot when we get older and we have too many experiences. But in the beginning, every experience is new. So you're just like, fucking, oh, I love it.
Give me all that.
Yeah. Not to get too personal or deep, but do you want to share anything about like what got you to sobriety and therapy and meditation and all that stuff? Because that's kind of the same path I'm on. And I don't know if it's just as we get older, we get to a place that because I always like to say I don't have any regrets, but I'm glad I'm not doing that now.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. Like I needed everything I went through to get to where I am now, you know? And like, I talk about it a little bit, like some of it I kind of keep out of the public sphere, obviously, but
sure.
Yeah, like alcoholism runs in my family. So I talk about this in the special. My grandpa died of alcoholism, and then my dad got sober when I was 13 because he's an alcoholic. So then when my drinking was really started to get gnarly, like and you know, it's funny, I was super, not that they did this, it doesn't matter, I would have become a drunk anyway, but like watching the Baker stuff and being like, dude, I want to be Ali Bilal. Like that's my greatest dream, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so when it started to get really bad, when I was like 27, I'll say this, like the weirdest thing was when the drinking stopped working. That was like, I remember being in this backyard at this like party, and I'd had probably like 6 little Jack and Cokes that I made for myself, and I couldn't get drunk. And then I started to realize, like, I started almost to have a panic attack, and something kind of clicked, like, dude, you're using this to avoid all this other like fear or whatever this shit is.
Yeah.
So then a year later, I stopped it's a whole fucking story. All my shit always sort of like was around breakups with women usually. So I'd break up with somebody and just like go down this gnarly path. So I broke up with this girl. We had this like crazy alcoholic on-off relationship. I'm still friends with her, but so I was partying super hard, just doing all these pills, living by myself, working at this law firm, so making a lot of money. And I just stopped showing up to the law firm. And then after 5 days, I went in there like, you're obviously fired. Like, what are you doing here? Like, you can't do this. They walked me out of there with like a security guard and stuff. And I was like, well, you think I'm going to steal your pencils? Like, fuck you. I was like real indignant, you know? And then I stopped drinking for 3 days. And this thing happened where my legs started to really, really hurt really bad and started kind of seize up almost. So I went to the hospital, and there's a name for it. It's some kind of like nerve damage thing that happens from too much drinking.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, I forget. There's some specific technical term, but yeah. And then they were like, the doctor was like, "What are your triggers?" Because I told him, I was like, "This is from drinking." I was like, "Waking up is a trigger. Like breathing is a trigger. I'm drinking all the time, dude." And then I went on that tour, and then there's just so many stories, dude. One time I was drinking it, and you can cut out any of this you want, but I was drinking a vodka soda that I made for myself in the morning on tour, and my dude I was on tour with was snoring, and I was talking to my girlfriend, and she was like, "Are you drinking right now?" And I was like, "Nope." And it was 8 a.m. and I was like, "Dude, you just lied about not drinking to your girlfriend in the morning? Like, something is fucking up, dude." So then after all that stuff, really, it was after that hospital visit, I think, that I started to kind of recognize, like, dude, you actually do. I'm not going to be able to live, like, do anything I actually want. There was a time where I was like, I tried to go skateboarding and I couldn't even roll down the street. I was so like shaky, and I didn't realize like it requires power for balance, just that balance. You know what I mean? So it like started to take away all the shit that I loved. So I'm so psyched to be sober, dude. It's hard, it's challenging, but it's also like any like goodness that I have, I think, as a person is really related to not drinking, you know?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like I've said it before, but I really feel like I wouldn't be able to handle everything I'm doing if I wasn't sober. Like my mental is so like, I juggle a bunch of things, and I'm accountable, and I'm doing a bunch of things. I'm getting older. My memory's not as good. Like I need to be as much on point as I can be, and being hungover just seems like I would get nothing done.
Dude, I don't know how I did any of it. Like blacking it out during that shit. And the other thing is like, I have no judgment on drinking at all. Like there's nothing wrong with anything. It's just the way that I use it is a little fucking wacky, you know?
Yeah, same. That's what I mean. Like it just got to a point for me where I couldn't handle it anymore. I was either having anxiety from the hangovers, or I was just like blowing it, like on a blackout, like waking up and going like, I did not do that. No, I didn't. Please, no. I'm a good dude. Like I did not do that.
I'm a sweet boy. I didn't mean to punch that hole in that wall or whatever.
No. Well, dude, I want to let you go, but one thing we didn't touch on it, but I do want to mention because I love this guy. Pancho Moeller is a friend of mine, and he's an ex-pro skater. He's a little guy, and he does a bunch of stuff with Wee Man and stuff. But Pancho is an aspiring comedian, and he's been doing a lot of stuff out there. If you ever get the itch and you guys could collide worlds, it might be really cool. He does a lot of skateboard jokes and stuff, and obviously like short guy stuff too, but he's the love of my life. Like I've known him for a long time, so
it's funny because I've been seeing his name on the lists. Like I'm sure I'll do a mic with him soon, probably.
If you run into him, tell him I said hi. I've been promising. I'm like, I'm gonna come see you. I will.
Yeah. You haven't had him on yet, right? Or have you?
No, I have. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Dude,
yeah, like I think like first year, maybe like 5 years ago or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and the last thing before I let you go, what podcast should I be listening to?
Ooh,
because it sounds like you're a podcast guy.
I do like podcasts. Yeah. What are you into? I mean, dude, I
ate up. What's it called? True crime was like I couldn't get enough of it.
Yeah.
But I'm into a lot. I like comedy for sure.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. You know what? Honestly, I think What's funny is I don't even listen to that much comedy. I like Couples Therapy. That's my friend Naomi Ekperigan and Andy Beckerman. They're fucking great. I've been on that a couple of times. It's really interesting. They have good comics on, and they take calls and give advice, and it's usually good and hilarious.
Okay.
So it's like, that's a good one. Again, I'm kind of a music nerd. I think one of the best podcasts ever is called What Had Happened Was, which is this podcast by this dude, Open Mike Eagle, but each season is 12 episodes with one person. So the new one is 12 episodes with Questlove, but the other ones, are let's see, Prince Paul, where there's like a whole episode about him talking about like De La Soul.
Oh, rad. I love De La.
Yeah, dude, one of my favorites. And there's Dante Ross. There's a whole one with Dante Ross, who's that like New York producer who's just
I know Dante Ross.
Yeah,
he gets the gas face.
Yeah, dude, the gas face. Yeah. Dante's a scrub.
Yeah, that's so fucking funny. We always talk.
That like that's what I love about podcasts is that like deep dive shit. Those are great.
Okay, well, dude, I feel like I know you now. Like, it was fun hanging out, and thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it. I always love having like some new life into this thing. Like, I didn't know really much about you, and now I feel like I know a lot about you, and I'm going to take notes on some of the suggestions for the comedians for sure.
Hell yeah, man. Dude,
and if
thanks
you're
for
ever in
having me.
SF, please hit me up. I'll come check it out. Like, if you're, we have Cobb's, and what's the other one? We only have two. I think the other one is Streetlight or something like that. I haven't.
Okay.
Yeah, so
dude, I'll come. I don't know. I'll come up there and we'll fucking roll around Wallenberg or something.
Yeah. Have you been to SF and checked out skate spots?
I did. Yeah, when I was 21, I did like a very like skate tourist thing with my buddy who was really good. So I watched him. I watched randomly Buzenitz was there one day, and they both like ollied the 3 at Wallenberg. I was not good enough. I don't think I ollied the 1, but I was like, it's sick to watch it.
Well, have fun tonight, and I look forward to maybe seeing you in the future.
Hell yeah, buddy. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate it, Schmitty.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Bye.
And now, a word from our sponsor, Oro Coffee. That's some damn good coffee. Order 1 or 6 bags at orocoffeeroasters.com.
Tell him he gives me a cup of coffee, I'll answer his questions.
Y'all like music? Because you're listening to SMFM.
Yes, good people. Welcome back to another edition of SMFM. This is number 5. The band VHS Dust. The song Nights in Skatin' Service. Beautiful. The band VHS Dust. The song Nights in Skatin' Service. This band is 2 people. One of them's from Minot, North Dakota. The other one is from St. Paul, Minnesota. And they get together, they make new songs, they skate with their friends, they record, they got tapes, and you can find them on Instagram at KDAB_records and tapes. All right? I'm streamlining everything to Instagram. Easy. You want your band? You want a friend's band? DM me. At on SMFM. All right? Best way. Pew. Straight shot. Straight shooter. Straight shooting. Anyway, from all of us to all of you, Thank you for checking out SMFM. I'm going to bring a new band to you next on Talkin Schmit. Peace.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Talkin Schmit. You can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Anchor, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. When you subscribe, you'll get notifications every Tuesday of new episodes the minute they become available. Also, please leave reviews and a 5-star rating. It's the best way to help the show grow. All of the episodes will always remain free, but if you would like to help support the show, you can do so at TalkinSchmit.com, where you can pick up some merchandise like t-shirts, beanies, hats, and stickers. The website has an entire archive of all of the episodes, with extra photos and videos. Email us with any suggestions, comments, or ways that the show may have improved your life at talkinschmit@gmail.com. All interviews are conducted, edited, and produced by Schmitty. The intro music is Mary's Cross by the band Nature. A very special shout out goes to the executive director, Sharal Camisa.
Shout out.
Love it! This is Talkin Schmit, where the Rolodex is deep, but the conversation is deeper.
Keep the wheels greased.